Hey everyone! In this video you will see a comparison of three heavy tanks of the 10th tier, namely the American T110E5 and M5Y, and the British Super Conqueror. The comparison will be as follows. There will be three categories: survivability, mobility, and firepower. In each category tanks will be rated from 1 to 3 points. We will also talk about their pros and cons, and decide which of these tanks is the best currently. So, let's go. Let's begin with mobility. It is worth noting that all the tanks are equipped with a turbocharger and a special slot for it, because it's a must-have equipment for these tanks. The T110E5 has very good mobility. As for a heavy tank, its maximum speed is 42 km per hour. Specific engine power is almost 18 horsepower per ton. Although the maximum speed is not very good, the T110E5 gains it instantly thanks to the powerful engine. Playing on the T110E5, you won't have any problems with taking positions or changing flanks. The second American, the M5Y, has the best mobility of all three tanks. Its maximum speed is 45 km per hour. Specific engine power is about 20 horsepower per ton. The M5Y also, like the T110E5, instantly gains its maximum speed. Playing on this tank you will often be the fastest to take positions. Indeed, this heavy tank drives faster than some medium tanks. And if you've never played on it, its mobility will please you. In contrast to its American competitors, the British Super Conqueror has pretty poor mobility. Its maximum speed is only 39 km per hour. And specific engine power is only about 13.5 horsepower per ton. Playing on the Super Conqueror you will experience some discomfort. Your teammates will always faster than you. This can be psychological pressure for you in some situations. But in general, it doesn't ruin the feeling of playing on this wonderful tank. So, in the category of mobility, the T110E5 gets 2 points. The M5Y gets 3 points. And the Super Conqueror gets 1 point. Let's move to survivability. That's where things get interesting. The T110E5 has very controversial armor. Sometimes, playing on this tank, you can absorb all enemy shells without damage. And sometimes you can be killed in a couple of seconds. The hull of the T110E5 is pretty strong. The upper part has armor from 350 to 1000 millimeters. The lower part, in turn, is pretty small and has armor from 200 to 250 millimeters. The main advantage is that this vulnerability is hard to hit, and sometimes a shell can ricochet, thanks to the steep angles. But it doesn't matter. The huge hatch, which has armor about 240 millimeters, negates all the armor of this tank. No matter how hard you try to move and use the armor, you're going to get pummeled in this hatch anyway. Now let's look at the armor of the M5Y. It is no less interesting. The hull as well as the T110E5 has random values of the armor. It is from 200 to 230 millimeters of the lower part of the hull, and from 260 to 350 millimeters the upper part of the hull, respectively. However, it will not be difficult for the enemies to penetrate you right in the hull with premium shells. But the turret of the M5Y is almost invulnerable. Unlike the bastard turret of the T110E5. The weaknesses of the turret are the small hatch, which can be still hit, and the weak top. If you tilt the turret down, the enemy will have no problem penetrating you in the roof of the turret. In general, the M5Y has a weaker hull than the T110E5, but a stronger turret. Now about the armor of the British Super Conqueror. It is more simple and clear than the Americans. The upper part of the hull has armor about 300 millimeters. But don't let these figures deceive you. As practice shows, it absorbs almost all shells without damage, thanks to the armor plate. So you can rely on this armor. The lower part of the hull has only about 150 millimeters of armor and is the vulnerability of this tank. The turret of the Super Conqueror is quite strong, but you should not fully rely on it. Despite its impressive appearance, sometimes you can be penetrated right in the gun. There is also a vulnerability as a small hatch on the turret, but only heat shells can penetrate it. Otherwise, the turret is very good. And you can use its armor. Also, the Super Conqueror has stronger sides than the Americans. I didn't mention the sides armor of the Americans, because there's nothing special about it. Well, in the survivability category, the T110E5 gets 2 points, the M5Y gets 1 point, and the Super Conqueror gets 3 points. Let's move to firepower. This is what makes these 3 tanks stand out among all the heavy tanks of the 10th tier. Each of these tanks is equipped with an excellent rapid-fire gun, which allows you to outgun almost any enemy. But first things first, T110E5 is equipped with the excellent 120mm gun. The average damage per shot of which is 400. The depression angle is 8 degrees. The average damage per minute is about 3,400. Aiming time, accuracy, stabilization, all this is on the highest level. Moreover, the stabilization is so good that you do not need to use the stabilizer. Instead of it, you can use the improved hardening or any other equipment of your choice. By the way, there's a guide to equipment on my channel. If you're having trouble choosing equipment, I suggest you take a look. Back to the theme, the gun of the T110E5 is comfortable in all aspects and has no cons. The gun of the M5Y is slightly different from the gun of the T110E5. It already has a caliber of 105mm, and the average damage per shot is 360. By the way, the M5Y has 2 guns to choose from, with a damage of 360 and an alternative one, with a damage of 440. In this video we look at the variant with 105mm gun. Which one to play, you decide for yourself. I personally think that with damage 360 is better. So, the average damage per minute is about 3,300. Aiming time, accuracy, stabilization, it's all just awesome. In addition, the depression angle of the gun is 10 degrees. In general, it is a very comfortable gun. However, it will be difficult for beginners to realize the full potential of this gun, because of the low damage per shot. Now about the gun of the Super Conqueror. It is almost the same as the T110E5 gun, with a few differences. The average damage per shot is 400. Stabilization and aiming time are identical to the American gun. British has slightly better accuracy. Also, the damage per minute is slightly higher. And the depression angle is better too, 10 degrees instead of 8. Currently it's one of the best gun at 10th tier, there's nothing more to say. Well, in the category of firepower, the T110E5 gets 2 points, the MVY gets 1 point, and the Super Conqueror gets 3 points. The result is as follows. The T110E5 has 6 points. The M5Y has 5 points. And the Super Conqueror has 7 points. Indeed, the Super Conqueror is currently the strongest of these 3 tanks. If you are a beginner and choosing which branch to start grinding, I recommend the Super Conqueror's branch. If you want a universal tank in all aspects, your choice is T110E5. But be prepared to suffering because of the huge hatch. If you want a hybrid of a medium tank with a heavy tank, your choice is the M5Y. Anyway, all these tanks are very good currently. Well, thank you for watching this video to the end. I hope you found it useful. It's time to say goodbye. Good luck to everyone. And remember, don't play World of Tanks.